Okay, so thanks for giving me your time, guys. I'm going to present to you my capstone assignment for my class. And our focus for today is we're going to talk about, or I'm going to present to you pretty much the situation that our agency has been going through. I was supposed to think of a problem or situation, and thankfully we had kind of a big one this summer. So I'll just kind of break it down for you. So what's our situation? Well, our agency had to meet new compliance requirements. So who was affected was our agency, Run Family Services, most specifically all the prevention early intervention programs, which for us was the FRC and SAP. We have a small staff of 17, and here we have a staff of 4. But it's also important to know that not only was our agency affected, but there's also 50 others within the San Bernardino County. So what led to this? In October of 2015, the state of California came up with new compliance requirements for all prevention and early intervention. However, the San Bernardino County didn't meet them, so because of that, San Bernardino County as well as Run Family Services has been out of compliance since September. So effective July 1st, we had to switch to new procedures, new forms, new processes. What this means for us is that this is a time of transition, which unfortunately means sometimes confusion and frustration. It's a time of change. Our responsibilities are changing. The way we do things is changing. And unfortunately, all staff is affected. Another thing that's affected is that leadership is being asked to stay accountable, however, to continue to inspire teams so that staff doesn't get lost along the way. When diagnosing the situation, one of the things I found interesting was that this was a common situation for nonprofits. It was kind of comforting in some ways. For nonprofits to remain in business, they have to stay within compliance. And even within our agency, we've seen that we've gone through stuff like this before. Whenever we get a new contract, whenever our contracts are revised or extended, which sometimes is every 3 years or every year, we have to undergo changes. Record keeping is not only common in nonprofits, but it's also expected. We're supposed to show innovation. Nonprofits are expected to continually improve their programs, both in management and in services. One of the big examples I found was within Head Start. All of Head Start underwent a huge program shift in 2015, and their shift had to go from compliance to what was called continuous inquiry. So what they were asked was to have a complete mind shift of the way they did things, from rule following to performance. And it was just a change of way of thinking, but for them that meant new forms, new procedures, and if they didn't, then the Head Starts would no longer stay within existence. So it was nice to know that other agencies have gone through this, and since they've gone through it, there's kind of examples that we could follow to stay successful. So diagnosing our situation, it's required for us to stay within compliance. Not only does it guarantee that we're within compliance, but it shows that we're being ethical. We have a responsibility to our funders. Our funding comes from grants and from the state, and if we're going to continue to receive money, we have to stay compliant. And our compliance not only affects ours, but the county's compliance, because when they get audited this year, they will be audited if they're doing their compliance, but then if the agencies that are contracted, which would be Run Family Services, is also stay within compliance. And another reason we have to stay in compliance is because we have to maintain fiscal responsibility and show our accountability, because ultimately nonprofits aren't just accountable to themselves, but to society and everyone who funds them. So what's required of us? We've already seen it. We have new policies, new forms, new procedures, new processes that aren't just having to be implemented, but some are having to be created and revised and followed. And when you look at who's responsible for this, it's not just us here within our agency, but it's all the leadership within the PEI offices at the county level and at the state level. And some of the things that have been contributing on their end is that they've had a lot of turnover in terms of employment and a lot of change. So it's hard for them to stay updated, and that's why there was such a lapse in compliance from September to July. Some challenges that this situation has posed for us is 4 days to comply. There was little to no explanation given. We had many unanswered questions, and there was a lack of inference structure within the system. For example, our PEI online database was made invalid. However, there was nothing in place to replace it, so we had no way to do stuff that we used to do. We've also seen a huge increase in paperwork. This requires multiple copies. We must create and store all this paperwork, and it increases the time requirement. And I think the biggest challenge is that it cuts into our client time, because I think the reason we're in this work is because we're in it for the true work, and the true work is the one-on-one and the group time we have with clients. And when we feel like paperwork is cutting in on the true work, it's very challenging to our own identity of why we're here and what we're doing. Other challenges is that there's a lot of unknowns, there's a lot of misinformation, and the biggest thing is if we don't know what we're supposed to do, we can't really do it. We don't know all the procedures, we don't know the rules, we have questions we've asked and have gotten no answers to, or just told to hold on, or told that they don't know. For example, with the billing, we were told to bill universal services under administration, but that's, if we were to do that, then we would be following directions. However, we would be unethical, and it's also a fraudulent practice, so it puts us in a really tricky situation, which increases a lot of our frustration. I came up with 4 possible options that Room Family Services could take through this time of transition. One is to create new routines. This would require using creativity and flexibility. New routines are great because they would you would benefit from new creativity. This also requires that we have flexibility, not just among staff, but among our labor, our staff. Having flexibility in routines, in equipment, in volume, labor management. And then the benefits is that you have what's called operational predictability. You begin to coordinate new tasks, new procedures, new forms. If you have new things you're tasked to do, then if you have new routines, then the new routines can come in place to meet those new challenges. Challenges of a new routine is that you're having to replace old processes and old routines. If it's not done, however, businesses have been known to fail, especially nonprofits. And if you continue to hold on to your old routines, the trouble is that they don't allow for adaptation, flexibility, or change. Another option that I found, which was one of my favorites, was to develop and rely on soft skills. If you're not sure what soft skills are, it refers to the interpersonal and the personal attributes being combined. So it's not just your career attributes, but it's also your people skills. The top 10 soft skills desired by employers are communication, courtesy, integrity, flexibility, interpersonal skills, positive attitude, professionalism, responsibility, and teamwork. And one of the main things they note is, and work ethics. These aren't things that can be taught. These are just things that are natural that people have. But if you can develop them, if you see them in employees, then those are things that can help you through a time of transition. Ways they would benefit is that it would allow us to develop our abilities to work together, to collaborate, to have teamwork, to build relationships. It increases customer service, communication, and leadership. It helps to create an environment where employees want to stay and perform, especially in a time of change. If you don't have a work environment where people want to stay, they're going to want to leave because it's too frustrating and they don't have systems in place where they want to stay. Soft skills have been known to affect agencies' performances and to help effectively get through times of transition. And they help alleviate frustration, negativity, and confusion, which we've already seen is normal through the big change that we're going through right now. The third option I came up with was for leadership to offer support and guidance. I think this is necessary because leadership plays a role during any time of change. There's a direct correlation among positive leadership and positive attitudes among staff. During times of change and transition, employees experience fatigue, depression, sadness. You start to see a decrease in excitement, enthusiasm, and employees begin to feel powerless because they're not the ones making the changes, they're just having to deal with it. If you have leadership in place who can help offer support and encouragement and transition through those times, then employees are more likely to stay. would you do it? Leadership can create positive affect, which would reduce resistance. It has lasting effects, and it fosters cooperation and support. You want to avoid negative affect, which would contribute to defensiveness and competitiveness. And if you have that kind of environment, then research has shown that employees tend to sabotage the new changes or to just withdraw altogether and then eventually leave the agencies. All right, so my fourth option was to maintain open lines of communication. Communication is a skill that can be developed, especially in the workplace. It has many benefits. It increases job performance. It helps to limit confusion. It clarifies expectations. You increase understanding. It allows for training and education. And for us, in our situation, who can do it as well between the agency and the county, using emails, phone calls, attending meetings, any interactions that we have. And then among employees ourselves, offering clarification, support, and then from leadership to employees, explaining expectations, allowing employees to clarify instructions, and leadership can motivate and then effectively correct if needed. Among leadership and employees, they're able to explain expectations to subordinates. It allows employees to clarify instructions. Leadership can motivate employees. And they can use corrective feedback, which is a 4-step process that involves describing the inappropriate behavior, explaining why it's inappropriate, giving an observable behavior that you want replaced, and then letting them know the consequences if they do or don't follow your correction. After looking at the 4, I had to pick one solution that would be the best for us to use. I picked communication. Although I think that it would help us to implement all of them, and I think we should do all of them as well. The reason I chose communication is because all the other options hinge on communication. You can't create new routines without communication, you can't have soft skills without communication, and you can't have leadership offering support without communication. Communication is essential for businesses and employees. Agencies are able to cut down on bureaucracy, and individuals can tackle issues head-on and avoid feeling like a victim, which is common in times like this. Communication is used on a daily basis. Through research, it was found that there's over 343 communication behaviors used in the workplace. The top 10 used are listening, asking questions, discussing, sharing information, agreeing, suggesting, getting feedback, seeking feedback, answering questions, and explaining. And those were all shown to be used on a daily basis, just so you can see how critical communication is to your work life. 4 factors that affect communication are your organizing communication behaviors, your relational maintenance, expressing negative emotion, and information sharing. Communication is seen as a highly regarded job skill. It's not just something people do, but it's a skill that can be developed. So employers are really excited to hire people with good communication. How communication can help us at Run Family Services is that it can be used to preemptively prevent destructive conflict. If you can resolve a conflict before it arises, then you're going to be ahead of the game. You're not going to have to try to squelch a fire if you can take care of it before it even blew up. If it's not handled well, then conflict can be destructive. But however, if it is handled well, it can lead to creativity and smarter decision making. Communication will help us navigate through this time of transition and change. It helps implement new routines, allows us to rely on soft skills, and allows leadership to offer support. And that was why I picked it as the top solution. However, I really think those 3 skills would help us, and so I think we could use communication to implement all of those 3 procedures. However, not just any communication will be enough. We have to have effective communication. Ineffective communication is responsible for millions of dollars being lost in businesses annually. Effective communication can be used by both staff and management. And I have a quote to end with. It says, "It's imperative for achievement-oriented professionals to communicate well in all aspects of their job." And I think if we continue to do that, then we'll not only get through this time of transition, but we'll come out successful. Thank you.